The courtroom's silence was suffocating, as though the weight of every judgment and injustice hung in the air. In the center, Adam Hayes sat slouched, his trembling hands clasped together. His eyes, deep and hollow, whispered desperation, pleading silently for something, anything. Yet this was the end of the road for him. "Let me see Max," Adam had begged the judge. Against all odds, the request was granted. The heavy wooden doors creaked open, drawing every gaze to a German shepherd led by an officer. The dog Max entered with a commanding presence, his ears perked and his sharp eyes scanning the room. Then, as if sensing a tethered bond, Max's gaze locked onto Adam. A deep howl broke the tense air. The leash slipped free, and Max bolted toward Adam, who collapsed to his knees in uncontrollable sobs. His restrained composure shattered into raw, painful cries. "I'm so sorry, my friend," Adam whispered, his voice trembling. He buried his face in Max's fur, tears flowing as though trying to etch the moment into eternity. Suddenly, Max tugged at Adam's pocket with determination. Confused, Adam tried to stop him, but the dog persisted until a crumpled piece of paper tumbled out. The defense attorney picked it up, unfolding it with a furrowed brow. As he read, his face paled. He shot to his feet, addressing the judge. "Your Honor, this document, this could change everything. We must suspend the proceedings." Gasps and murmurs filled the room, but Adam's heart raced faster than the growing chaos. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanning the paper's contents with skepticism. But as his expression softened into shock, he asked, "Is this real?" "Yes," the lawyer affirmed, his voice steady. Adam clung tightly to Max, the dog's warmth his anchor. A flicker of hope lit his eyes, quickly tempered by fear. Could this truly be his salvation, or just another cruel twist in his story? Adam sat in stunned silence, the courtroom swirling in chaos around him. Max pressed against his side, his body warm and steady, as if trying to ground Adam in the storm of uncertainty. The judge's gavel slammed repeatedly, demanding order. "Mr. Hayes," the judge's voice cut through the noise, sharp but curious. "Do you recognize this document?" Adam shook his head slowly, his voice hoarse. "No, Your Honor. I've never seen it before." The judge exchanged a look with the defense attorney, whose determination was now palpable. "Your Honor," the lawyer began, stepping forward, "this document details a bank transaction and other records that suggest Mr. Hayes was framed. It's evidence we didn't have before. Evidence this dog somehow uncovered." The judge frowned but nodded. "Very well. We'll adjourn until the document's authenticity can be verified." The gavel struck again, signaling the recess. But Adam barely registered it. Max nudged his hand, and Adam clung to him tightly, his fingers buried in the dog's thick fur. As officers approached to escort Adam back to his cell, Max resisted, letting out a low, protective growl. The officer leading him softened, crouching to gently guide the dog away. "We'll take care of him," she promised quietly. "Hang in there, Max," Adam whispered, his voice cracking. "We're not done yet." Back in the cold isolation of his cell, Adam replayed the day's events in his mind. The image of Max tugging at his pocket haunted him, a puzzle he couldn't solve. How had the paper gotten there? And how had Max known? Exhaustion finally overtook him, and he drifted into a restless sleep, his dreams filled with fragmented memories. The day the police had stormed his home, the accusations that had felt like daggers, the unyielding eyes of witnesses who lied with ease. But there was Max, always Max. His steadfast companion, his lifeline. Adam remembered the day he had adopted the German shepherd from a rundown shelter, the dog's wary but hopeful gaze matching his own. They'd been two broken souls seeking solace in each other. The next morning, Adam's lawyer arrived with a grim expression and a flicker of hope. "Adam," he began, sliding a file through the small slot in the cell door, "the document is real. It shows a transaction made to an account in your name, days before the crime. It's evidence you were set up." Adam's breath caught. "Does this mean?" The lawyer hesitated. "It's a start. But we still don't know who planted it, or why." And that's where it gets dangerous. Danger. The word lingered, a shadow creeping into the edges of Adam's thoughts. But for the first time in months, a fragile ember of hope burned in his chest. As the lawyer left, Adam turned to the cell door, whispering into the emptiness. "Max, you knew, didn't you? You've always known." Meanwhile, across town, the lawyer delved into the origins of the document. Every lead pointed to a larger, darker conspiracy, one that seemed determined to keep the truth buried. As the pieces began to connect, a name emerged, sending a chill through the lawyer. James Everett, a powerful businessman with influence that reached deep into the justice system. The revelation set a dangerous precedent, and the lawyer knew one thing for certain. The fight for Adam's freedom had just begun. Adam couldn't shake the unease settling deep in his chest. Back in his cell, the silence felt heavier than usual, as if it carried the weight of secrets yet to be uncovered. He paced the small space, replaying the lawyer's words. James Everett. The name meant nothing to him, yet it carried an ominous weight. Who was this man? And why had he gone to such lengths to frame Adam? That night, Adam lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, Max's absence gnawing at him. His memories drifted back to the first time he saw Max at the shelter, a scarred, trembling dog with eyes that held an uncanny intelligence. The bond between them had been instant, unspoken, but profound. Max had saved Adam from loneliness, and now, it seemed, from something far greater. Across the city, Adam's lawyer sat in his dimly lit office, the file open on his desk. The crumpled paper Max had uncovered was no ordinary document. It was a map to something deeper, a financial trail leading to Everett's tangled web of corruption. The lawyer's research revealed that Everett's properties had been the sites of numerous illegal activities, from money laundering to underground dogfighting. The fire at the shelter where Max had been found wasn't accidental. It had been a deliberate act to erase evidence of Everett's crimes. And Max? He wasn't just a survivor. He was a witness. In the prison yard, Adam noticed something unusual. A group of inmates stood in a tight circle, their eyes darting toward him. One of them, a wiry man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, whispered something to a guard, who nodded subtly. Adam's instincts flared. He had spent months in this place learning to read people, and these signs were impossible to ignore. He was being watched, hunted even. Later that evening, as he sat on his cot, a slip of paper was pushed under the door of his cell. Heart pounding, Adam picked it up. The note was scrawled hastily. "They know about the dog. Watch your back." Fear surged through Adam's veins. He stared at the note, trying to steady his breathing. Who had sent it? And what did they mean by they? The next morning, Adam's lawyer returned with urgent news. "Adam," he began, his voice tense, "we found someone, a man who used to work for Everett. He knows what happened at the shelter and why you were framed." "Where is he?" Adam asked, gripping the table edge. The lawyer hesitated. "He's in hiding, but he agreed to talk if we can reach him before Everett's people do." Adam's jaw tightened. "Then we have to move fast." The lawyer nodded. "I'll make arrangements. But Adam, there's something else." He slid a photograph across the table. It showed Max, chained in front of a decrepit barn, scars visible even in the grainy image. Adam's heart twisted. "That's him," he whispered. "That barn," the lawyer continued, "is on one of Everett's properties. It's where Max was rescued, and it might hold the answers we need." As the lawyer left, Adam's resolve hardened. Time was running out, and the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. He needed to stay alive. Not just for himself, but for Max. The dog had risked everything to uncover the truth. That night, as Adam lay awake, he whispered into the darkness, "Hold on, Max. I'll get us out of this." The next morning dawned heavy with tension. Adam felt the weight of every moment pressing against him. His lawyer had promised action, but Adam knew that time wasn't on their side. The note warning him about Max replayed in his mind, filling him with dread. Whoever was after them wouldn't stop. In his small cell, Adam's thoughts churned. The photograph of Max chained in front of the barn was etched into his mind. That barn was the key. He could feel it. Meanwhile, Adam's lawyer reached the outskirts of a small rural town. The abandoned barn stood like a ghost of its former self, its walls weathered and sagging. The faint remnants of a symbol painted on the door were barely visible, but it was unmistakable, the same symbol from the photograph. As the lawyer approached cautiously, he noticed scorch marks on the ground near the entrance. This was where the fire had started. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of ash and decay. The place was eerily quiet, but remnants of its dark history lingered. Chains, cages, and fragments of burned paperwork scattered across the floor. Among the debris, the lawyer found something that made his breath catch, an old file, partially singed but still legible. It contained a list of names, dates, and financial transactions, all linked to James Everett. At the bottom of the file was a crude sketch of the barn with Target scrawled beside it. Back in the prison, Adam's unease grew. During the afternoon, he noticed the same guard who had slipped him the note lingering near his cell. The guard motioned subtly for Adam to approach. "We don't have much time," the guard whispered. "They're planning something. You need to be ready." "What do you mean?" Adam asked, his voice low but urgent. "They're coming for you, and for the dog. They won't let this go to trial." Before Adam could respond, the guard walked away, his movements quick and furtive. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his cot, his fists clenched. He thought about Max, his loyal companion, who was somewhere out there, possibly in danger. "Max," he whispered into the dark, "you've done so much for me. Now it's my turn to protect you." The next morning, the lawyer returned with a grim expression. "Adam," he said, sliding the partially burned file onto the table, "this barn was the center of Everett's operation. This file links him to everything, the dogfighting ring, the arson, and even the payments that framed you." Adam stared at the file, his jaw tightening. "Then what are we waiting for? Bring this to the judge." The lawyer hesitated. "There's one problem. The evidence is circumstantial without testimony from Everett's former employee, and he's disappeared." Adam's hope faltered. "Disappeared? What do you mean?" "He went into hiding. Everett's people must have gotten wind that we were looking for him." Adam leaned back, his mind spinning. "So we're stuck again," he muttered, his voice bitter. "Not entirely," the lawyer said. "There's one more angle. We can push for a hearing with what we have, but it'll put you and Max at greater risk." Adam didn't hesitate. "Do it. Whatever it takes, we'll face it." As the day passed, Adam prepared himself for what lay ahead. His connection to Max, that unbreakable bond, filled him with determination. Max had uncovered the truth. Now it was up to Adam to ensure it was heard. But in the shadows of the prison, danger loomed. The whispers among the inmates grew louder, and Adam knew that Everett's reach extended further than he had ever imagined. "Stay safe, Max," Adam murmured to himself. "We're going to finish this." The morning of the hearing arrived, cloaked in an air of unease. Adam was escorted to the courthouse under heightened security, the whispers of danger from within the prison still fresh in his mind. Every step felt like walking a tightrope, with no safety net below. As he was led into the courtroom, his eyes searched for Max. The German Shepherd was there, seated beside a handler from the Animal Protection Agency. His gaze locked onto Adam's, and for a moment, the noise and tension of the room disappeared. "Hang in there, boy," Adam whispered under his breath, gripping the edge of the table as he sat down. The defense lawyer stepped forward, presenting the new evidence. The partially burned file from the barn, along with the financial records and photographs, painted a damning picture of James Everett's operations. "Your Honor," the lawyer began, his voice steady but impassioned, "this case is not just about my client. It's about a conspiracy to frame an innocent man, orchestrated by someone who thought himself untouchable. The evidence we've uncovered links James Everett directly to the crimes for which Mr. Hayes was convicted. And Max, he motioned toward the dog, is living proof of what was done to cover up those crimes. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor rose, attempting to counter the claims. This so-called evidence is circumstantial at best. A burned file? A photograph of a dog? This does not exonerate Mr. Hayes. Adam's lawyer stepped forward, his voice sharper now. Circumstantial? Let's not forget that this dog uncovered a crucial document during these proceedings. And the property where he was found? It's tied directly to Everett. The scars on Max's body tell the story of what happened there, and of Everett's crimes. The judge listened intently, his expression unreadable. As the courtroom deliberated, Adam's heart pounded. He looked at Max, who sat calmly, his gaze unwavering. It was as if the dog knew the importance of this moment. But then, something unexpected happened. The doors to the courtroom opened, and a man entered, his face shadowed with fear. It was Everett's former employee, the one who had gone into hiding. The lawyer turned to him, stunned. "You came," he whispered. The man nodded. "I couldn't stay silent anymore. I have to tell the truth." The testimony that followed shook the courtroom. The former employee revealed the full extent of Everett's crimes, the dogfighting ring, the deliberate arson at the shelter to destroy evidence, and the decision to frame Adam because of his inadvertent connection to Max. "I was there the night of the fire," the man admitted, his voice trembling. "Everett ordered it to cover his tracks. Max was one of the few dogs that escaped. He survived, but he became a threat, and Adam Hayes, he was just a convenient scapegoat." The courtroom fell into stunned silence as the judge absorbed the revelations. Finally he spoke. "This evidence and testimony bring new light to this case. Mr. Hayes, the charges against you are hereby dismissed. Furthermore, a full investigation into James Everett and his associates will commence immediately." The gavel struck, and with it, Adam's freedom was restored. As Adam stepped out of the courthouse, the sun felt warm on his face, a stark contrast to the cold walls of the prison he had left behind. Beside him, Max walked proudly, his tail wagging. Adam knelt down, wrapping his arms around the German shepherd. "We did it, Max," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "We're free." Max licked Adam's face, his actions speaking louder than words. But as Adam and Max walked away, he knew this was just the beginning. The fight for justice wasn't over. There were others like Max, victims of Everett's cruelty, who still needed saving. And together, man and dog would ensure the truth was never buried again. The courthouse steps were bathed in golden sunlight as Adam and Max stood side by side, their freedom newly won. Yet Adam knew this victory was only the beginning. James Everett's network of corruption was vast, and there were others, both human and animal, who still suffered in the shadows of his crimes. Adam knelt, running his fingers through Max's thick fur. "This isn't over, boy," he murmured. "We've got work to do." Max's tail wagged, as if in agreement, his deep brown eyes filled with an unspoken determination. Later that day, Adam and his lawyer met with representatives from the Animal Protection Agency and local investigators. The documents uncovered at the barn, along with the former employee's testimony, had triggered a cascade of actions. Raids on Everett's remaining properties, the freezing of his accounts, and subpoenas for his associates. The Animal Protection Agency revealed harrowing details of what they had found during one of the first raids, a hidden kennel with dogs still bearing scars from years of abuse. Among the survivors were animals too weak to stand, their eyes filled with the same haunting pain Adam had seen in Max when they first met. "We can't let this happen to anyone else," Adam said firmly. "Whatever you need from me, I'm in." Max became a symbol of hope in the fight against Everett's cruelty. News of the courtroom drama and the loyal German shepherd who uncovered the truth spread quickly. People across the country rallied behind Adam and Max, donating to organizations that rescued animals, and demanding justice for those who couldn't speak for themselves. But Everett was not one to go down quietly. Despite the mounting evidence, he still wielded influence, and Adam's lawyer warned him to be cautious. "Everett won't stop until he's silenced everyone who stands in his way," the lawyer said grimly. "You and Max are at the top of that list." Adam glanced at Max, who sat protectively at his feet. "Let him come," Adam replied. "I'm not running, not anymore." That night, Adam lay in bed, Max curled up beside him. Sleep didn't come easily. His mind replayed the horrors uncovered at the barn and the fire that had almost claimed Max's life. But intertwined with the pain was a spark of hope, a belief that, together, they could make a difference. The faint glow of his phone caught his attention. It was a message from his lawyer. "Another raid tomorrow. This could be the big one." Adam stared at the screen, his resolve hardening. "We're going, Max," he said softly. The dog lifted his head, ears perked, as if he understood. The following morning, Adam joined the raid team at an isolated property on the outskirts of the city. The barn was eerily similar to the one where Max had been found, its faded paint and rusted metal hiding the horrors within. As the team moved in, Max walked at Adam's side, his movements confident and alert. The officers breached the barn doors, revealing rows of cages stacked haphazardly. The stench of fear and neglect was overwhelming. Max barked sharply, his body tense, as if sensing something. He led Adam to a corner of the barn, where a small hidden door was slightly ajar. Behind it, they found a room filled with shredded documents and computer equipment, evidence Everett had tried to destroy. Adam's heart raced. "This is it?" he whispered. Hours later, as the evidence was cataloged and the dogs rescued, Adam stood outside the barn, watching as Max sniffed curiously at a patch of grass. He knelt down, rubbing the dog's ears. "You've always known where to look, haven't you?" he said with a smile. Max licked Adam's hand in response, his tail wagging gently. That night, Adam and Max returned home. For the first time in months, the air felt lighter. Justice was no longer just a distant dream. It was within reach. As Adam sat on his couch, Max curled up at his feet. He looked out the window at the stars. He knew the battle wasn't over. Everett still had resources and allies, but Adam wasn't afraid. Together, he and Max had faced darkness and emerged stronger. Now, they would use that strength to shine a light on every hidden corner of injustice, ensuring no one else would endure the pain they had suffered. Adam rested a hand on Max's back, his voice quiet but resolute. "We're not just survivors, Max. We're fighters, and we're not done yet." Max let out a soft huff, as if in agreement, before closing his eyes. The days following the raid felt like a whirlwind. The evidence uncovered at the second barn sealed James Everett's fate. Arrested during a surprise operation at one of his lavish estates, Everett now faced charges ranging from arson to organized crime. For Adam, watching Everett's downfall felt surreal. The man who had tried to destroy his life was now shackled, his empire of corruption crumbling under the weight of the truth. Yet, amidst the chaos of justice, Adam couldn't shake the thought of all those who had suffered in silence. Victims like Max, whose scars told stories that words never could. 1 week later, Adam stood at a podium addressing a crowd gathered at an event organized by the Animal Protection Agency. Max sat at his side, his posture regal, his presence commanding. The audience was silent, their attention fixed on Adam as he spoke. "Max saved me," Adam began, his voice steady but emotional. "Not just in that courtroom, but every day since the moment we met. He reminded me that even in the darkest times, there's a way forward, if we have the courage to fight for it." He paused, glancing down at Max, who looked up at him with unwavering loyalty. "But this isn't just our story. It's the story of every voiceless victim, every animal, every person who has suffered under the weight of cruelty and injustice. Today, we're not just here to celebrate the victories we've won. We're here to promise that we won't stop until every one of them is free." The crowd erupted into applause, a standing ovation for the man and his dog who had become symbols of hope. That evening, Adam returned home with Max, the noise of the day fading into the quiet of the night. Sitting on the porch, Adam watched the horizon darken as the stars began to appear. Max lay beside him, his head resting on Adam's knee. "You know," Adam said, stroking Max's ears, "we could stop here, live a quiet life, no more danger, no more battles." Max let out a soft whine, his eyes lifting to meet Adam's. Adam chuckled. "Yeah, I didn't think so." He looked out at the night sky, his resolve hardening. There was more work to do, more lives to save, more truths to uncover. The next morning, Adam and Max set out on a new mission. Together with the Animal Protection Agency, they began working to shut down the remnants of Everett's operation. Each rescue, each victory felt like a step toward healing the scars left by the past. For Max, it was more than a fight. It was a chance to rewrite his story, to turn pain into purpose. And for Adam, it was a way to repay the loyalty and love of the dog who had saved his life. Months later, Adam found himself back at the shelter where he had first met Max. The building had been rebuilt, its walls painted bright and inviting. Inside, dogs of all shapes and sizes barked and wagged their tails, waiting for the second chances they deserved. A young girl approached Adam, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Is that Max?" she asked, pointing to the German Shepherd sitting proudly at Adam's side. Adam smiled, kneeling to her level. "It is. He's a hero, you know." The girl grinned, reaching out to pet Max, who leaned into her touch. "I want to adopt a hero too," she said. Adam's heart swelled. "Then you're in the right place," he replied. As Adam and Max walked back to their car, the sun dipped low in the sky, casting golden light over the world. Adam looked down at Max, who walked confidently by his side. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Adam said softly. Max wagged his tail, his steps light and purposeful. Together, they had faced the darkness and found the light. And together they would keep fighting, for those who couldn't fight for themselves. The past was behind them, but their journey was far from over. Adam knew one thing with certainty. As long as they were together, there was no challenge they couldn't face. As the car pulled away from the shelter, the horizon stretched wide before them, a symbol of the endless possibilities waiting in the days ahead. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our latest videos. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Thank you all for taking the time to watch, and see you in the next video.